Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and in this video I'm going to be giving you my boss predictions for the upcoming Final Fantasy XI themed raid in Final Fantasy XIV, Sandoria, the Second Walk. The first walk was kind of all over the place. Juno, we didn't really know what to expect boss-wise, and Prish definitely wouldn't have been on my list. Then we had Fafnir, the Archangels, and Shadow Lord. They kind of hopped all over the place to a really popular notorious monster that used to wipe people for days, to individual bosses that would come together as part of the Rise of Xylard expansion, to the final boss of the base game. So because they were going all over the place, it was pretty hard to predict what they were going to do for any future bosses, other than some of the mainstays which I probably brought up in previous videos. But this time I come a little bit more prepared, as we do have somewhat of a basis to base our boss predictions on this time. Some of which we've already technically had kind of light confirmed. We don't know for certain if they're going to show up as bosses, and we don't know exactly how, but let's go through the video, and I think more of it will make sense as I explain it. Before we get started, the sponsor of this video is Magic Spoon. They make high-protein cereal, snack bars, and granola, and we've been working with them for quite some time. It all tastes great, and honestly, it helps me when my snackometer is going off. And yeah, I get a little snacky. I've been eating their products for years now, and I get excited every time a new box pops up. This latest one came packed with some delicious treat bars and some scrumptious granola. I'm always glad to have a high-protein option around, whether it be right after I get back from the gym, or honestly, sometimes I just want to avoid traditional snacks. If you'd like to try Magic Spoon while also supporting the channel, then click the link below to get some today. Build your own custom box of products with tons of available flavors to match your daily needs. Best of all, use my link and discount code Mr. Happy to get $5 off of your box. You can also buy it at your local grocery store, even on Amazon if you prefer. And if you don't like it, Magic Spoon has a 100% happiness guarantee. Let them know and they'll refund you, no questions asked. So click the link below or scan the QR code on the screen and use code Mr. Happy to get $5 off, or go to magicspoon.com/Mr. Happy to save $5 on your order. It even works in Canada and the UK. Thanks again to Magic Spoon for sponsoring, and now back to the video. So the raid itself is called Sandoria, the Second Walk. So it's worth expecting that one of the bosses is actually going to take place in Northern Sandoria, where we're actually seeing the Second Walk begins. It's that specific portion in Northern Sandoria, you can tell because of the fountains and stuff, that actually leads to the chateau where the royal family lives. And that made me think, well, if they want to do another hero turned boss, then there's no better character than, and I'm sure this is mispronounced, Tryon I de Oraguail, aka Prince Tryon, voted the 15th most popular Final Fantasy XI character way back in 2013, but you know, he's still kind of popular amongst people today. He's by far the most notable member of the royal family, more so than his father, more so than his brother, who he's constantly squabbling with, and he is just a mainstay. He's big part of the Sandoria mission questline, and he even appears in the Otter-Gon storyline, as well as a few other places as well. And he is just kind of the most definitive presence in Sandoria. There are other important characters that I could definitely name, and I am going to be doing a tour of Northern Sandoria, as well as maybe the chateau in a future video. But Prince Tryon is someone who has a lot to offer in terms of boss mechanics. While his actual in-game mechanics are very light, he just has a few weapon skills. He's got Royal Bash, Royal Savior, Invincible, Savage Blade, and I think Red Lotus Blade is the other one. He also casts a ton of white magic. Honestly, not that dissimilar from what Prish does, just she was a monk and he's a paladin. But the big thing is that in the Sandoria mission line, there's a sword called the Lightbringer. And if the sword is ever wielded, it will literally cause a nuke. Like, it's a massively powerful sword. It's basically cursed with like this infinite power. I'm not going to get too much into the lore here. We can do that in a separate video. He never actually draws the sword for more than a second, but if he ever does, it would have wiped out all of Sandoria. So Lightbringer is probably something I expect to make a brief appearance in this section. And another reason why I think Prince Tryon is going to be the first boss, is because back in the end of Juno, after we were done with all the cutscenes, it seemed like Surreal Jaw wanted a leader, kind of like a body that represents a leader for Galul Jaja's separate heads. Now, to be fair, I don't think Prince Tryon is the one. He may have looked at Tryon and his brother and thought, oh, you know, Galul Jaja, I can split those heads into those two different bodies. But it didn't work out. Hey, maybe the brother will even appear in the boss. That's not something I'm predicting, but it totally could happen. So I think we're going to actually be seeing a theme of powerful leaders across the different nations and across the different parts of the game. So Trian, by far, my most likely first boss. It could be someone else, but that's going to be my first prediction. Now, the second boss, it's hard to predict. I actually have better predictions for the third and fourth boss than I do for the second boss. And honestly, my third and fourth boss could actually all be one boss. It's entirely possible that what I'm thinking is going to happen is not going to happen the way I'm thinking it's going to happen. But again, following the fact that we seem to be looking for powerful leaders and we have a good idea of who at least one of the other bosses is, it wouldn't be too surprising if they went right from Sandoria to either Bastok or Windurst. It would be odd to me if they didn't go to all four of the original city-state locations, as they are all iconic locations in the Final Fantasy XI world. There's tons of lore, tons of bosses to take from all those various areas. For example, if Windurst is the second area, I mean, most people are going to go with Shantoto, but we've had a Shantoto collab, and I don't know if they want to go that route. But I think it is a very likely boss. I think maybe they'll do the Shantotos from the Shantoto Ascension add-on pack. Maybe, maybe not, but Shantoto's definitely at a lot of people's lists. Karua Barua and Fenrir as a dual boss wouldn't be too surprising as well as Ajido Marujido. These are all notable figures in either Windurst's history or in its modern day, and are all massively powerful characters in their own right, that if we're going through the theme of transforming leaders into bosses, that would be the big thing. The Star Sibyl could even be a boss and then feature some of these other characters alongside them. With Surreal Jaw doing all of his magics with Electrope, anything is possible. But Windurst to me seems like the more likely second candidate if they are going to go to another city-state. Bastok, it has some major figures, and a lot of lore actually originates there. All of the Shadow Lord's lore originates in Bastok. But if we're going there, the only bosses that really come to mind, I mean, yes, you have Zaid and you have Volker, but you really just have the Mithril Musketeers. And unless they really want to beat poor Naji into the ground, which is something that won't make sense to you who didn't play, I don't know if we can expect the Mithril Musketeers to be an actual boss. They don't have that same power and that same lore that Shantoto, Karua Baruha, and Ajido Marujido have. There are even other Tarutarus I'm not naming that could absolutely be present as well. Bastok doesn't have that much of a presence other than Zaid, who's not even really from Bastok. He's just a Galka, so he's like tied lore-wise to the location. He does kind of hide out in the mines there, and he does occasionally appear in some of the Bastok quests, but he's kind of all over the place. Like, he's a mainstay character in other story and lore, so much so that I actually had him I had art of him done some years back for my Final Fantasy count-up, as you can see on the screen right now. So the second boss, I think, is just going to be another powerful leader. If it's not this, if it's not following a theme, I think, honestly, you can't seriously predict any boss. Like, you can look at Fafnir and think, well, maybe Adamantoise or Espito Chelone, or maybe Behemoth or King Behemoth. I don't think we're getting another Behemoth boss. Like, I just don't think we're doing that again. Another Alliance raid of Behemoth boss at that. And I don't think Adamantoise or Espito Chelone makes a whole lot of sense. There are other bosses. There are Chains of Promethea bosses, but because we haven't appeared to be going to Chains of Promethea areas yet, I'm leaving a lot of them like Oryu and Bahamut, which I think it's right to leave Bahamut out for the time being, especially out of the way. There's totally possible, but I'm thinking that they're probably saving Chains of Promethea stuff for the third series. I even think that the third one could be the walk, could be like the Tavnasia, the final walk or something like that, as opposed to being Bastok or Windurst, especially because Sandoria and Tavnasia are very closely tied together lore-wise. Heck, even Juno's closer tied lore-wise to that than Bastok and Windurst are. So second boss, maybe even the third boss, could see us going to Windurst and or Bastok and fighting some of these more major characters there. Now, my third boss prediction, assuming that they don't go to each of the city-states and do their own boss for each location, is kind of a gimme, because we've already been showed some of the most important imagery that we could have been showed to spoil this. In one of the images, you may have, if you've watched my live coverage of the first live letter, I referred to an area as Bluesky Glacier, and that Fei Yin were the ruins behind them. There was a lot of question marks about that, because there's another area that looks very similar called Kufim Island, and there is the legendary Delkfoot Tower. Delkfoot Tower is so popular, it's been featured as a Dissidia arena when they released Camlanot, the character I'm about to talk about as a character. It's even featured in Stranger of Paradise as the Final Fantasy XI stage. It's a major, major thing. So I actually went to both Bluesky Glacier and to Kufim Island, and I can pretty definitively say that this is Kufim Island in this image. And it makes the most sense. Delkfoot Tower is about the same height as this. It's far better kept together than Fei Yin, but more notable than anything is the actual tree in this image. Kufim is full of those trees, and Bucidine doesn't have any in the region of Fei Yin. Not to say they're one-to-oneing it, but I think they actually wanted to use that tree kind of as a teaser and indicator. But even just looking at the two towers side by side, that's clearly Delkfoot Tower in the back. Now, Delkfoot Tower features one of the games, at least when it released in North America, the original game, because we got Rise of Xylar when it released here. It features one of the most dangerous story bosses we had for a really long time by the name of Camelot. I already mentioned he's featured as a character in the more recent Dissidia release, the one that was in arcades in Japan and then Dissidia NT at home. And he is one of the two main antagonists of the Rise of Xylar expansion pass. We actually do already have confirmation that he's somewhat present in this patch, and it was a prediction I've actually had for a while. In this image with Surreal Jaw that was posted during the live letter, that is Camelot, who is kind of, out of focus in the forefront. That is without a doubt him. So he is the Archduke of Juno, makes sense after Juno the First Walk, and he actually is the one who summons the Archangels to defeat the adventure in the first place. So that's what I mean by these raids are kind of like in all sorts of weird orders. Having already defeated the Archangels, when Camelot is kind of the one with his brother Eldnark, are the ones who actually even bring them forward. So he is certainly a boss here. I don't think that's a teaser for something after. I think it's as I originally predicted when the first raid came out, that Camelot was going to be a boss in the second tier. As for notable things to see in his encounter, he's really known for having lots of elemental blades. So any sort of water blade knocking back or wind summoning tornadoes, expect a lot of that, but the most deadly attack he has is actually called Light Blade, which dealt incredibly high light damage. I mean, this would often one-shot tanks back in the level 75 era, especially early on. So Light Blade, who knows what it'll do? It could just be his tank buster. That was what it was most known for. But I definitely expect to see a lot of elemental style attacks coming out of this fight. He also has Great Wheel, which was an AoE and aggro reset back then. They may just make that his raid wide here. And other than that, he doesn't really have a whole lot. I think he has some white magic as well. And he has a couple of other smaller attacks. But for the most part, yeah, I expect it to be elemental blades rotating between all sorts of mechanics that we have to deal with. Now, while Camelot could be the final boss of the raid tier at the peak of Delkfoot Tower after we venture through Kufim, there's one other character that I think it would be a mistake not to include, and the question is how they will use him. So Camelot is one of the two villains in Rise of Xylar, but the other one is his older brother Eldnark, who looks like a small child. His body stopped kind of aging when he gained all the special powers that he has. He's the elder brother, and he's the true main antagonist. So he should realistically be after Camelot after he dies. So the prediction is third boss Camelot, fourth boss Eldnark, or Eldnarsh, or however it's actually pronounced. And I don't really know how they're going to do that. They're going to have to make him supersized, maybe even give him kind of a Prish effect where he gets over-enhanced by whatever Surreal Jaw's doing with the Electrope. Because Camelot's actually the far more menacing-looking final boss in most cases. Eldnark, he starts on this platform with a bunch of tiles around him, these things called exoplates, and then summons a bunch of orbital adds to overwhelm the party. They could use those to do all sorts of laser patterns, perhaps, until you actually defeat the exoplates that are around him in the first part. He also does a massive AoE called Phase Shift, and he's got other attacks. He's got Gaia Stream, Uranus, Cascade, and Chrono Sling. Cool sounding attacks, but they're honestly just fancy AoEs for better or worse. Also casts really high level magic, which I'm sure they could use in the fight as well, if not at the very least as a tank buster. After defeating the exoplates and hitting him for a bit, he then just kind of goes into this crazy strong mode where he casts even stronger magics. He's got an attack called Vortex, Stellar Burst, Omega Javelin. So he's got a bunch of cool stuff. They're just going to have to either just make him a lot bigger relative to the party size. Honestly, they'll probably have to do the same for Camelot as well. Or they're going to have to do something really crazy and surprising. I wouldn't be opposed to them kind of being let's put our Final Fantasy XIV spin on him. But Camelot and Eldnark almost certainly going to be bosses here. I do think it's Eldnarsh, Narch or something like that. I don't know. It's it's a game without voice acting. I can't know for certain. But the big thing is what they could actually do is go to all three city-states, do Sandoria, Windurst, and Bastok, and then make us fight Camelot. And to be fair, we don't even have to fight a boss in one of those city-states. They could go through Bastok, but we don't fight a boss there, and then we end up in Windurst and then fight a boss there. They could totally do that as well. But it's possible that Camelot and Eldnarch could be fought together. There is an encounter in Final Fantasy Apocalypse Nigh, which is only available after completing both the Rise of Xylar and Chains of Promethea expansions, where you do actually fight them both at the same time. And so they could do that and then still do something even more fantastic on top of that. But that's a big question. I just expect both of them to be there as bosses. I think they'll be separate, but there's a chance that they're together as well. Honestly, I don't even think it's that big of a deal to predict those two. Honestly, my Prince Tryon prediction is the one that I'm kind of holding on to for like my big, like, ooh, I got him, you know, see, I got it right. But it's really hard to predict. They showed they're willing to go all over the place, do all sorts of things that we just, quite frankly, as 11 fans weren't expecting. And I can't wait to see what they actually do. I'm sure I'll have plenty of lore videos explaining who these characters are, what their stories are. There was a lot of interest in that last time, and I'd like to continue doing that for you all who maybe don't want to take the time to play Final Fantasy XI, but want to get all of the references that are coming into Final Fantasy XIV. Or for those of you who did play and want to hear about those characters. Maybe you never did the Sandorian mission line and don't know about Lightbringer. Maybe you just haven't done it in so long you want to hear about it again. Who knows? But I'll do my best. So that's going to be a wrap for my boss predictions for the second walk for the Final Fantasy XI X Final Fantasy XIV raid. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe and stay tuned. There'll be a decent number more Final Fantasy XI themed videos just going over stuff after, both before and after we find out more about the second walk. But thanks for watching. I'll see all of you in the next one. And until then, take care.